We don't realize how often we speak things into existence, not through magic spells or mystical rituals, but through something far more powerful: attention. Terence McKenna once said, "The world is made of language." It wasn't just poetry. He meant it literally. That the reality we live in is coded and constructed through words, symbols, meaning. And if that's true, then manifestation isn't some mysterious law of attraction. It's the everyday architecture of our thoughts, building what we call life. Let's pause here. How many times have you told yourself something like, "I'll never get ahead. No one really listens to me. I guess this is just how things are"? You weren't being dramatic. You were unknowingly laying bricks, creating patterns, locking in emotional trajectories that become hard to escape. That's not magic, that's psychology, turned in on itself. McKenna didn't believe manifestation was about wishful thinking. He believed it required novelty, a real break from habit, from routine perception. Manifestation, in his view, is an act of rebellion against the predictable. You have to become different to create something different, and for that, he argued, you need courageous attention, attention that disrupts the default mode of reality. Most people don't realize how automated their attention has become. We scroll, consume, react, but we rarely intend. And intention is everything. For someone in midlife, say 45 or older, this hits differently. You've been through enough to know that time doesn't wait, that patterns entrench, that regret has a long echo. You've also seen how reality bends for people who move with purpose. But maybe you've also stopped believing it could bend for you. McKenna would challenge that resignation. He'd say, your story is still writing itself, but only if you reclaim authorship. To manifest anything effortlessly, McKenna believed, you must first stop seeing your mind as just a mirror of the world. It's not passive, it's projective. Your beliefs aren't observing reality, they're participating in it. And language is the tool. Ask yourself, what language have I been using with myself? What stories am I repeating so often they've become real? If you're constantly reinforcing the idea that you're stuck, overlooked, too old, too late, your mind, following its own internal algorithms, begins to exclude the possibilities that contradict that. Not out of malice, just out of efficiency. So, step one isn't a technique, it's a shift in understanding. You are not manifesting with thoughts. You are manifesting with your attention and your vocabulary. And here's the kicker. It's not about being positive. McKenna wasn't into toxic positivity. He believed truth, even uncomfortable truth, was the only valid starting point. But once you're in truth, you have to shape it. The moment you notice your language forming a wall, change it. Mid-sentence, mid-thought, rephrase, reclaim. This is the most radical spiritual act you can take, choosing a new word where the old one would have hurt you again. If this reflection has already touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and share in the comments. What part spoke to you the most? Now, let's continue. Terence McKenna's life work was not just about psychedelics. It was about perception, and the realization that perception creates reality. He often said that when we take a psychedelic, we don't just see colors or hallucinations, we see ourselves. We encounter the mirror, raw, merciless, beautiful. But here's the thing, you don't need a substance to access that mirror. Life itself offers that reflection every day, if you're brave enough to look. Midlife especially is a psychedelic in its own right. Suddenly old ambitions fade. The masks we wore for decades start to slip. People leave, bodies change, dreams adjust. That's not just aging, that's ego dissolving. That's your identity saying, maybe I wasn't all that I thought I was. This collapse, McKenna believed, was sacred. He called it the moment when novelty breaks through habit. And it's the first real doorway to effortless manifestation. Why? Because the more tightly you cling to old identities, provider, rescuer, the one who keeps it all together, the more rigid your reality becomes. The psychedelic mirror, whether induced or natural, shows you this rigidity. It reveals how your attachments shape your world. And in that moment, you face a terrifying truth. If you want something new, you have to become someone new. Not through force, not through hustle culture, but by surrendering the outdated version of yourself. McKenna wasn't afraid of chaos. He believed chaos was the precursor to transformation. Manifestation, in his eyes, wasn't a clean process. It was messy, disorienting, and necessary. Reality bends, but only when you do. Only when you give up the illusion of control and let something deeper emerge. Your authentic frequency. We all have one. But it gets buried beneath years of trying to be acceptable, agreeable, safe. Many people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s begin to feel this strange ache, like something is trying to surface, but they don't have a name for it. McKenna would say, that's your unexpressed self, demanding a turn. And here's the paradox. The more you try to manifest using formulas and tricks, the less effective it becomes. Why? Because you're manifesting from fear. You're trying to manipulate the universe instead of dancing with it. Manifestation is not coercion, it's alignment. When you strip away the false roles and finally meet yourself in the psychedelic mirror, you don't have to beg the universe for anything. You are the signal. The world begins to shape itself around your presence. This isn't philosophy, it's frequency. You are always manifesting, even in silence, even in uncertainty. The question is, from what version of yourself are you manifesting? If you don't like the answer, it's not too late. You just have to look again and soften where you've been hard. Most people think language is just a tool for communication. Terence McKenna believed something much deeper, that language is reality's operating system, that words aren't just reflections of thoughts, they're the very scaffolding that shapes what we perceive as possible. And here's the kicker. Most of us are using this system unconsciously. Think about it. When you say, I always mess this up, or nothing ever changes, you're not just venting. You're coding. You're setting a baseline frequency that your subconscious then tries to maintain. Why? Because the mind craves consistency. And language, spoken, thought, repeated, provides the pattern. McKenna often compared language to magic. In ancient cultures, to speak something was to invoke it. Naming was an act of creation. In many ways, that hasn't changed. Every time you name yourself, a failure, a burden, too old, too late, you're casting a subtle spell, and your nervous system believes you. This is especially important later in life, when we've collected decades of identity. So much of our inner dialogue becomes habit. I'm just not that kind of person. That dream passed me by. It's too late to start over. But what if that isn't truth, just linguistic inertia? McKenna challenged us to interrupt the loop, to recognize that the stories we tell about ourselves aren't just descriptive, they're directive. They shape where we put our energy, who we connect with, what we allow ourselves to attempt. Language becomes a map. But if the map is outdated, how can you expect to arrive somewhere new? There's a quiet tragedy in this for many midlife adults. They may have spent decades holding the same inner script, often shaped by trauma, cultural conditioning, or family expectations, and they've never questioned it. Manifestation feels out of reach, not because it doesn't work, but because the language driving the system is still running on fear and limitation. McKenna's invitation was radical. Consciously rewrite your spellbook. This doesn't mean fake positivity or empty affirmations. It means tuning into your language with precision and reverence. Ask yourself, what am I reinforcing with the way I speak about my life? Instead of saying, I'm stuck, try, I'm in transition. Instead of no one listens to me, try, I'm learning to value my own voice. These aren't tricks. They're reframes that shift your orientation toward possibility. And the more you practice them, the more your brain, and by extension, your reality, starts to reorganize around that frequency. You don't have to believe in magic for this to work. Your nervous system doesn't care about belief, it responds to language. So choose it like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. One of the most damaging misconceptions about manifestation is the idea that we have to be perfect to receive. That if there's any self-doubt, fear, or imperfection in us, the universe won't respond. Terence McKenna would call that a myth born from misunderstanding how reality actually works. In McKenna's framework, The universe, or what he often referred to as the field, doesn't operate like a judgmental parent. It doesn't require polished emotions or flawless belief systems. What it does respond to, with astonishing precision, is authenticity. Authenticity is not about having it all figured out. It's about being aligned with your real experience. In other words, stop pretending you're not afraid. Stop faking enthusiasm. Stop forcing clarity when you're confused. When you show up honestly, not perfectly, you become magnetic, because you stop splitting your energy. The fragmented self, which says one thing but feels another, sends a mixed signal into the field. And mixed signals don't manifest with ease, they manifest with chaos. This is where midlife becomes both a challenge and a gift. By your 40s, 50s, or beyond, you've likely worn many masks: the achiever, the caregiver, the fixer, the strong one. You've learned how to perform strength even when you're crumbling inside. And while that helped you survive, it can now keep you stuck. McKenna's view was that authenticity is psychedelic in itself. Why? Because it dissolves the false self. And that collapse, though painful, makes space for something real to emerge, the frequency that life responds to effortlessly. Think of manifestation like a radio broadcast. Perfection is static. Authenticity is clear signal. Many people struggle with this because authenticity feels vulnerable. It's admitting you don't know, that you want more, that you're tired of pretending. But here's the truth no one talks about. The field already knows. You're not hiding anything. You're only delaying what's possible by denying what's real. So how do you move toward authenticity? Start by telling the truth in small, private ways. Say out loud what you actually feel, even if it's messy. Journal without editing. Speak without rehearsing. Cry without apologizing. McKenna would say this is not weakness, this is the beginning of power. Because from that rawness, clarity arises. And with clarity, your manifestations stop becoming desperate wishes and start becoming grounded invitations. You no longer ask life for something you don't believe you deserve. You embody the version of yourself who has nothing to hide. And that version is magnetic beyond belief. In a society obsessed with filters, metrics, and appearances, authenticity feels like rebellion. And rebellion, in McKenna's philosophy, is sacred. It's how you exit the programmed dream and enter the living present. So if you're tired of trying to get it right, maybe it's time to get it real. Because what you seek isn't waiting for your perfection. It's waiting for you, the unedited version. In Western culture, we're taught that time moves in a straight line. Birth, youth, adulthood, old age, death. It's a tidy narrative, one that makes planning and productivity easier. But Terence McKenna didn't buy into that model. He believed time was non-linear, filled with spirals, thresholds, and strange loops. And if time doesn't move in a line, then neither does your life. This changes everything, especially when it comes to manifestation. Many people in midlife look at their lives through a linear lens. If it didn't happen by now, it probably never will. I missed my window. I'm running out of time. But what if time doesn't work that way? McKenna proposed that moments of profound transformation, the kind that disrupt reality and allow manifestation to occur, often emerge outside the ordinary flow of time. He called this the ingression of novelty. It's the idea that the future can break into the present, not gradually, but suddenly, like lightning, like revelation. And here's what that means for you. Your past doesn't limit what can happen next, unless you let it. Maybe you've spent decades building a certain life, a career, a role in your family, a reputation. And maybe now something in you whispers that it no longer fits. That doesn't mean you failed, it means your timeline is folding. You're being invited to step into a moment that doesn't belong to the logic of your past, but to the calling of your becoming. McKenna's view of time empowers us to break free from regret and reinvest in possibility. He believed that our culture's addiction to chronological thinking, always asking how old are you or what should you have achieved by now, was a form of psychic imprisonment. It limits not only what we do, but what we believe we deserve. He would ask, if time isn't linear, why are you living like it is? Think about it. Haven't there been moments in your life where everything changed in an instant? A meeting, a conversation, a realization. where time seemed to slow down or speed up. These are ruptures in the timeline, portals, and they're always available. But you have to stop assuming the best is behind you to see them. This is why so many people struggle to manifest in later life. Not because they lack vision, but because they believe their timeline is fixed. It's not. In McKenna's world, the future is an artist, and it's still painting you. So here's a new way to see yourself. You are not running out of time. You are being shaped by a time that hasn't fully arrived yet, and your job is to stay open enough, present enough, to let that future find you. Release the narrative that your life is on a single track. You're not late. You're in orbit. If there's one truth Terence McKenna returned to again and again, it's this. The universe speaks in silence. In a culture obsessed with doing, achieving, optimizing, constantly moving, stillness feels like failure. We associate effort with worth. But McKenna believed that most of our effort actually gets in the way. Because the truth is, manifestation doesn't come from constant action. It comes from deep alignment, and alignment happens in stillness. Stillness isn't passivity, it's receptivity. It's what allows you to hear yourself beneath the noise. When was the last time you sat without trying to fix anything? No goals, no solutions, just presence. For many people, especially those in midlife, stillness is uncomfortable. Why? Because when you stop running, all the voices you've silenced, fear, grief, regret, longing, begin to surface. And that's exactly where the transformation starts. McKenna understood that manifestation isn't about pushing, it's about tuning. Imagine your mind as a radio. If you're constantly flipping stations, chasing signals, trying to force a broadcast, you'll miss the quiet channel that's already playing your frequency. Stillness lets you lock in. It lets the universe, or what McKenna called the morphic field, respond to your true signal, not the frantic one you send when you're desperate or doubting. This is why your most powerful shifts don't happen during a to-do list or a vision board exercise. They happen in moments of surrender, of breath, of quiet knowing. But culturally, we don't value this, especially as we age. We're told to stay productive, stay relevant, keep going. And underneath that is the fear. If I stop, I'll disappear. McKenna would flip that. If you don't stop, you'll never appear. Because your real self, the one capable of effortless manifestation, doesn't live in your performance. It lives in your presence. And presence can only be found when we slow down enough to feel what's real. Stillness allows integration. It's where past wounds and future desires meet in the only place that can hold them both, now. In midlife, this is especially potent. You carry so much wisdom, but often don't give yourself time to absorb it. Stillness becomes the container for everything you've survived and everything you're still becoming. It gives space for grief to move through, for dreams to reawaken, for the field to hear you. McKenna taught that the universe is not outside you. It's an echo chamber of your deepest state. And in stillness, you stop yelling your fears and start whispering your truths. That's where manifestation begins. So if you're wondering what else you should be doing to attract the life you want, maybe the answer isn't more, maybe it's less, maybe it's nothing. For just long enough to remember who you are, stillness is the meeting point between your vibration and what you've been asking for all along. Terence McKenna had a radical belief that each human being is a carrier of novelty, the unpredictable, the unique, the never-before-seen, and that the evolution of reality depends on that novelty expressing itself. In other words, you are not here to fit in, you are here to rupture the pattern. Let that land. So much of what blocks manifestation isn't lack of skill or clarity. It's the mistaken belief that you have to become something else first. Better, smarter, more spiritual, more together. But McKenna's vision flipped that entirely. He believed that true power comes not from achieving some perfected state, but from embracing your weirdness, your originality, your wild, unrepeatable frequency. And this isn't just philosophy, it's survival. The world, McKenna argued, is saturated with sameness. Institutions, systems, even spiritual teachings often push toward conformity. But reality evolves through surprise, through risk, through individuals who dare to live from their core, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. This is the essence of manifestation. Not conjuring something outside of you, but unleashing something already within. It's common, especially in midlife, to feel like your moment has passed, like your novelty expired. But nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, this is often when your real originality emerges. Once the noise of proving, pleasing, and pretending begins to fade, you've lived enough to know what doesn't work. You've loved enough to understand what truly matters. And maybe now you're finally willing to stop chasing and start emitting. McKenna would say, "You are not here to be a copy of anyone else's dream. You are the event, the signal, the unique eruption of consciousness the universe has been waiting to express through your choices, your words, your presence." And when you stop resisting your own strangeness, when you stop comparing and diluting and shrinking, something clicks. Reality begins to bend, not because you forced it, but because you aligned with the current of novelty that wants to live through you. So what does this mean practically? It means the final step in manifesting anything effortlessly is to stop outsourcing your authority. Stop waiting for permission. Stop editing your desires to match what's realistic. The truth is, the most powerful creators are the ones who live as if their inner world already counts. Because it does. You are not late. You are not too old. You are not out of time. You are the living edge of possibility, shaped by everything you've seen, lost, survived, and still hope for. And that makes your vibration irreplaceable. If Terence McKenna were here, he might tell you this: you are not a spectator of the universe. You are the force that gives it form. Speak, imagine, be bold. The universe doesn't need more obedience. It needs more you. So go ahead. Manifest not by striving, but by becoming, because the secret isn't in the technique, it's in your truth.